Good afternoon. How is everybody doing? Hey Tim, Taylor.
Doing
Hello,
good.
good morning here on the West Coast.
True that. I'm always on an East Coast. It's that East Coast bias going on here.
Yeah, we
How
need to
y'all
get
doing today?
a special timer for all of us so we know who's in what time zone.
Right? It's Baby Friday, so can't
Yes.
complain. I think someone used that term one time, and I'm like, that's a great term, Baby Friday.
Yeah.
Interesting. I have not heard that one before.
I'll have to try that. Yeah. I think that's got legs.
Well, cool. Yeah, this is the second episode of Zero Limits, a show where we bring on, zero experts, zero app partners, just to highlight more around zero and integrations and what you can do with the ecosystem. So we have with us today Taylor Clouse with Next Level Books, and Taylor is a one of our earlier partners in the Seattle or Washington State community. So welcome, Taylor. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yes, thank you for having me. This is going to be fun. Love talking about software and Zero and everything accounting.
Well, that's awesome. So I know I jumped into Zero in 2012. When did you start using Zero, Taylor?
Probably about 2020. I mean, I think I
Okay.
might have been to it a little bit earlier, but it was probably about that 2020 time frame during the pandemic that I was introduced to Zero and just started using it.
And was it Tam that introduced you or part of that introduction to Zero for you?
Tam was there at Zero. I was actually reached out to. I think my profile was found on LinkedIn by actually his name was Andre at the time,
Mm-hmm.
one of Zero's partner reps there. So he reached out to me, and Andre and Tam were working in the Seattle area, so I was introduced to Tam shortly thereafter.
Did we ever, so pre-pandemic, by the way, we had these little zero minis. They were fully wrapped in accounting software colors and would drive around dropping off like cookies and donuts and all kinds of like nifty swag to partners. Did we ever do that for you?
No, never. This is actually the first time.
Okay. That is funny. Yeah, that's how we would get around before. But yeah. So Taylor and I did actually work together. I was a partner consultant at Zero at the time, and yeah, we've stayed connected over the years, and it's just really great to see how you've grown with Zero.
Yeah, for sure. So,
Yeah, it's been a great option to have, especially as we see things change in the profession. It's good to keep our options open, and I think Zero's actually, I don't know, in the last year or so, really upping their game, making some nice improvements.
I would
So
say that is very true, and much so in the last 2 weeks. It's been amazing. But Tam, you were about to jump into something there, so I'm sorry I cut you off.
yeah. No, I mean, I totally agree. There's been a lot of enhancements over the last few weeks, which I'm really excited about. There's a lot of momentum there. But Taylor, back then when we just started together, you were 100% QuickBooks firm. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think I was caught really early on in my starting my business. We've been in business just for about 3 years now, and I was trained in QuickBooks Online and didn't really know anything about Zero at the time. Uh, Through that process, I had come across HubDoc, and that was kind of like a little snippet. That I was familiar with Zero, but didn't know anything about it until uh, Zero Rep reached out to me, and then really liked the idea. So I was very interested in you know moving more and more clients over to Zero at that time.
And tell us more about that. What was it about Zero that had you intrigued enough about it to move a client over? Like what was the first client that you put on Zero?
Oh, the first client I put on Zero. Ooh, I'm trying to remember who I would have done that. It might have been one of my clients, it's a tattoo shop that we put on there. I think I like the idea when it was explained to me that Xero was built, as a cloud-based platform, initially. It wasn't a desktop software that, they try to convert into a cloud-based software. So it was really designed with that in mind. It was clean, it was simple. And then obviously, it's a price consideration. It's very competitive price-wise, which is helpful. And what else? Oh, just the fact that it comes with HubDoc. I think that's a huge selling point. It's such a great tool that I think so many business owners are just not even utilizing it as much as they could. So the overall package just was ideal.
So
Yep, that's great, Taylor.
when
Sorry,
you're
go ahead, Jay.
considering switching to Xero, were you thinking about the client's needs at that point, or was it about internal workflows and things that would impact you and your bookkeeping firm at that time?
Yeah, I think it was just, giving clients an option. I had some bumps in the road in this process. You have clients that never had any accounting software before. Maybe they're doing spreadsheets, maybe they're doing something else. And so that's a great opportunity, to lay out, okay, these are your software options. Which route would you like to go? And usually at that point, most clients would choose Xero. A little bit different proposition when you are looking to do bookkeeping for a client and they already have an alternate software. And then you have to make the decision, is it worthwhile to go through the effort to change? And so I did a couple of those conversions. That was quite the learning process. So I think I've changed my idea on that from occasion.
So I'm shifting here for a moment. So I'm getting ready to present migration at Scaling New Heights, migrating to Xero. Tell me about your experience and what you learned from it.
Yeah, I think, we did one that was like a full conversion where we brought over the data from QuickBooks Online. And, this was one of those things where we were just going to initially, bring over maybe like a year or two worth of data. But this particular client, they had a software background and they're like, well, these softwares, they do conversions all the time. It's going to be super simple. Let's just bring out all my data from the last, I don't remember, 5 years. They were willing to pay for it. So, we had to go through that process. But obviously, in the accounting software, the way it's handled from one to another is different. If the books weren't good to begin with, they're not going to come over. So, I think you really have to decide, is it worth all of the effort to bring that historical data over, or just let it stay there, back it up and just start fresh in the new accounting software, which now that's my preference. If we could just make a clean jump, start a fresh year, that's just, and plus it gives you an opportunity to clean things up. If there's an old file and it hasn't really been handled properly, there's a lot of things that could be done better, and just starting fresh gives you that clean slate.
Yeah, I coined that the fresh start method, and that is my preferred method as well. And you start asking your clients why they want the history. They can't give you an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, it's either they need the sales detail for one reason or another, or for warranty reasons, or they want to have comparative financial statements.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are ways around all of that. So, I think you're on the right path there by doing the fresh start there.
Yeah, that's been preferred method.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you both because I've been involved in many, many, many migrations across many partners in the US, and that's definitely the preference, right? The fresh start. Like you can just keep the history in the old file, access that when you need to. When you get to conversions, you can bring over, just the balances. A lot of times people are just running monthly comparative, income statement reports or, balance sheet reports, and you don't need all the detail that sits behind those numbers. And you're just bringing over data that, isn't clean to begin with. And so we always used to say, garbage in, garbage out. Is it worth spending all that time cleaning up this file and then replicating in that new file? So
that's exactly it. Just get out there and start working. Get them moving. Get things rolling.
So I will say, the other lesson learned, all these, pieces, moving back and forth, paying attention to, the clients, how they're taking payments. Because if they're heavily ingrained in the previous accounting software's payment collection method, whether it's ACH or credit card, maybe they're doing a lot of automatic payments. Going to a new accounting software, all of that information is going to have to be transferred over. So, new ACH, new credit cards, new authorizations with businesses. So there's a lot to think about.
So
when you do something like that.
That is really a great point there. So we've talked about the switch, but we didn't really talk about your clients. Do you have a specific niche or vertical that you work with?
Yeah, so for the most part, it's a lot of professional services. Now here in Washington State, we do tend to gravitate toward a lot of construction trades. We have sales tax here on construction trades, so that keeps us busy. And that's actually one of the things I'm excited about with Xero is looking at how they handle sales tax and the recent upgrades to their sales tax engine. I have to say is phenomenal, especially for us that go through the process of prepping these reports and then going and filing with the DOR, trying to make sense of what the accounting software is telling us versus how it gets filed with the Department of Revenue. And other software is a lot dirtier, and you've got to make a lot of reverse engineering of numbers to figure out what they were doing. But with Xero, this new sales tax engine is just super easy.
Yeah, I have to admit, I love it. I was actually I was setting up Xero Inventory Plus with the sales tax module the other day. And I mean, literally 4 clicks and sales tax was set up.
Oh, nice.
It's really, really cool. And they made it really easy. They really went back to the drawing board and set up a sales tax platform that will take us for the foreseeable future. And the way it's connected to Avalara, it just makes it so easy to use. And they have managed returns for accountants, and it seems fairly reasonable. And it's the platform is free for us. Well, the connection's free for us using it with Xero. I believe there is a platform fee that you have to pay, but if you do have a lot of clients that you're dealing with sales tax, it's going to make it so much simpler to track it and file those payments and file those returns and the associated payments. So I am so looking forward to using it here in the near future.
Yeah, it's in. Oh, go ahead, Tam.
Thanks. I was going to say, Taylor, it was really big praise coming from you, especially in Washington State where sales tax and B&O tax can be very painful. So can you tell us how you were managing sales tax prior to this new upgrade? Like, what did you have to do that you now do not?
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest things for us is, when we're looking at those sales tax reports, lining up the cities to the correct cities with the DOR filing. And in previous accounting software, sometimes we'll have, let's say, one city might have 3 or maybe 4 different location codes, and the naming conventions aren't correct. They're a little bit off. So trying to line up, the liability reports with the DOR and trying to figure out which jurisdiction it's actually trying to go to can be a nightmare. But with Xero, not only do they have the cities listed out very cleanly, but they're giving us 4-digit location codes. So we can perfectly match those with the DOR filings. No more guessing. We look at the 4-digit code, we match it to DOR, done. And I've seen some messy things in other accounting software where they'll have 2 city codes listed on the liability report, but in DOR, it's 1 code. So we have to know that those 2 are 1, and we have to combine those numbers to file with DOR. Don't have that with Xero. They just put it under the one jurisdiction. So yeah, just things like that, takes, some of these files can just be a headache, spending time reverse engineering it. And then at the end of the day, it may not even match correctly. And then you just best guess on that.
That's exactly what you want to hear from your accountant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's amazing though.
Assumption. This is correct. But yeah, it's just phenomenal what they're doing, making it so much easier. Hopefully it raises the bar across all accounting software, but they're doing a great job.
Yeah, I think that looked at that from the perspective of, let's partner with the ultimate sales tax tool, Avalara, and put their spin on the UI, which they've always looked at that UI to be clean and easy to use. And I think that's truly what we've got now, is the best sales tax app with the best UI. Like you said, it's going to make your job a whole lot easier, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, and I'll say on a side note that I've been in touch with some of the development team at Xero on this sales tax, and they seem very interested in making it better and making it how we need it to be, which is quite interesting because obviously we're in the United States. I'm in Washington State, and this team that I've been in contact with, I believe they're in Australia, but they do seem to have a very good grasp of what we're dealing with and trying to create the software so that we can handle it how we need it to be handled, which I've not seen this in other accounting softwares.
We've often heard from accounting partners and people in the accounting space that Xero isn't concerned with the US, but this is showing just how deep they're going in the US right now. And they are developing tools like sales tax, like Xero Inventory Plus for the US. And we are going to reap the benefits here for years to come. And we can definitely see the concentration that Xero is putting on US and US product right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I was going to say, even it's not just the big things that Xero is doing right now that's making an impact. It's even the small things, right? The small things like localizing the language so that there aren't 2 M's in program, or like rewording the names of reports in the system so that it matches, US terminology and US slang. I think that's it's such an important thing, right? Because then, and Taylor, would love to hear your perspective on this as well, but it feels like it's made and tailored for US accountants rather than, New Zealand or Australia, et cetera.
Yeah, it's certainly getting better. I think there's still some improvements they can make on it, especially with the the tax codes, that they add to a lot of the transactions, tax exempt, tax on purchases, things that we don't really need. It would be nice to be able to disable those for some of the reporting purposes, but it's a minor nuisance at this point.
That's fair. But someone new coming into the industry and is looking at Xero's accounting software and they see that there are options for tax exempt or tax on purchases, could be confusing, right? Like what do I need this for?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's a
Especially
great
when
point.
you have, usually what is there? There's maybe two accounts on there you can't delete. And you can set them to zero, but, depending on your reporting, if you doesn't change your numbers at all, but they can show up in different spots on the reports. So something just to be mindful of.
Yeah, I'm wondering if some of that has to do with the legacy connection with the chart of accounts and those legacy terms that you're referring to. So I'm sure we'll see something with that here soon.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, it doesn't make or break anything at the end of the day. Just
Yeah.
one of those nuances, if you're coming in, like Tam said, you're new to Xero, you're used to a different accounting software, they don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, what is this? Does it matter? What do I do with it?
Right.
So you mentioned sales tax as being something that you really enjoyed about the platform, a new enhancement. But you've been using Xero for years. So would love to hear more about how exactly you're using Xero and when you might keep your clients off of Xero. Because you mentioned that you have construction clients primarily, right? Are those construction clients the ones that you put on Xero? How does that work for you?
Yeah, I would say I have a couple of construction clients in Xero. Still, most of them I think are in other accounting software. Uh, and I think the biggest challenge with that, and this could be a whole topic in itself, is just integrations. I think that's the one thing that's a little lacking with Xero is having the third party integrations that we need for certain industries and things that businesses want. So that's always a consideration I have to be aware of with construction clients. If they're small-ish, and they're going to stay kind of that way, then what Xero offers works just fine. They probably won't need anything else. But if it's a possibility that they're going to grow, eventually down the road, they're probably going to want a third party construction software for job costing, for managing their business. And, right now, there's just not a lot of options in that arena, especially now, dealing with sales tax. That's even with other accounting software, we have to be aware of these third party integrations and how they handle sales tax and bring it in. So there's a great opportunity for companies out there to build these integrations and support Xero. I think we're seeing more and more of that as we look at the landscape. And I mean, there's more than Xero out there, but I think Xero and the other big one, QuickBooks, are probably the main two out there being supported.
So, of those apps that you're currently using, not on Zero, what do you would you list two of your favorites? So maybe we could put some pressure on them to actually build a connection to Zero.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily have a favorite, but I know there's like Notify, Builder Trend. Builder Trend might have
Builder
Xero.
Trend does, or it did at one point. Notify, I know I pressured them a few years ago about that and haven't seen anything there because I heard a lot about it out in the space. But yeah, those are the two that I'm aware of.
Yeah, and then you get into specialized ones for certain ones. What is their House Call Pro? Um, uh, Trying to remember a couple of other ones, but there's ones for plumbers and
Mm-hmm.
HVAC, different trades. There's Jobber, although Jobber they need a lot of work. I'm not necessarily a fan of the system as
Some
it
of
is.
these are sorry, so some of these are geared towards outside the U.S. market, right? The ones that you're listing. Does it work
Uh,
pretty well for you?
yeah, I mean, so far, like, I mean, Notify works pretty good. House Call Pro we started working with. But a lot of these still we have trouble with the sales tax and the invoicing, even with other accounting software. You know, they don't really build it in so robust. I think part of that is Washington State is a little bit of an outlier in terms of what we do with construction and sales tax. So in other states, it isn't such a big priority. But I think the best case scenario when they build these integrations, if they can at least create an invoice, push it over into the accounting software, and then let the accounting software generate the sales tax, then we can get, you know, good, clean reports. A lot of these are still using manual sales tax rates, which that's a whole nother issue to manage.
Oh, you are so right there.
Yeah, especially when you're relying on business owners to choose which sales tax rate matches that city, and oftentimes they're not doing the proper research to do that.
But you mentioned doing the invoicing in the native app and taking that over to Xero and let it do the sales tax. I mean, I talk to a lot of clients that are using many different apps, and they're like, "How should we invoice?" I'm like, "Invoice through Xero because you have the payment services in there, and the way that works with the bank feeds. If you're using Stripe or PayPal or even Go Cardless, the ones that are built in, it's going to do the reconciliations for you. It simplifies your work." And they did a really good job building those out. It's been about 3 years now on those, I believe, and I would highly recommend doing it that way. And you're spot on right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's nice. I mean, that was the other thing that was drawing me to Xero is, across the board, everything is just priced more competitively. So, when you're looking at ACH options, the native ones are very competitively priced compared to what's out there in the market. And in fact, I actually just started using a new payment processor myself called Rotessa. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but they have a Xero integration. So I was very impressed with that.
Yeah. Interesting. Tell us more about that, because I know that accounting firms are always looking for new payment methods and processors. So what is special about Rotessa and how does it integrate?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is just their pricing structure. So if you're looking at something like Go Cardless, and recently they changed their pricing structure. It used to be, I think, 1% with a $250 cap. Now they have like tiers depending on how much service you need. I think the bottom tier is 0.5%, but it caps out at $5. And then they have a couple other tiers if you need more than that. Rotessa, you basically are buying blocks of transactions. So you buy a block of 10 transactions. And then if you go past 10, you buy a block of 20 transactions. So it's less about the dollar amount and more just, how many transactions you're running. So when you look at it that way, the pricing is significantly less. Of course, they're kind of playing the numbers. So if you only have, 3 clients on there and you're paying for a block of 10, that's not cheaper. But I think once you start getting into the 6 clients, range, you're breaking even, 7, 8, 9, 10, you're saving money. And then, you go to the next tier and pricing drops a little bit less. So anyway, it's pretty interesting. Direct connection into Xero. So it'll pull in the customers, it'll pull in the invoices into their system. And, once you have the mandate set up, it'll just automatically pull the payment based on those invoices that are coming in.
And it's ACH only, right? Not credit card.
Correct. Just ACH. So more a Go Cardless competitor than a Stripe.
Yeah. I'm actually being recovering appaholic. I'm sitting here Googling it and looking at their site right now while we're talking. And it's like all of the testimonials are Xero Canadian ambassadors or connected.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, for sure. So I'm gonna check
I
that
just
out.
heard about it through some colleagues, and I was a little hesitant to do it, but after getting it set up, I have to say I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, the pricing was like for 11 to 50 payments was $39 a month. That's not bad.
No, yeah, not bad at all.
I mean, 11,
It'll be
you know,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see, all these new models that are coming out, right? We have, that the simple 3% on every transaction for credit cards, and then up to a certain point capped on ACH, and it's just so cool and interesting, and I'm wondering how quickly they're going to be able to grow with this new model. But thanks for sharing that with us, Taylor. That's
Yeah,
exciting to have options.
most definitely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially, I think the QuickBooks Online. I don't know if you heard this, but they recently changed their pricing structure on ACH, and I don't think that's going to be a good move on their part.
Wasn't there no fee for ACHs and QBO payments at one point?
Maybe a long time
Oh, was
ago.
it that long ago? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, up until recently, if I remember right, it was 1%, but a $10 cap. But
Okay.
from my understanding, they have now removed the cap, and it's a straight 1%.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it's changing things for clients over there. So yeah, one
Yeah,
nice
for sure.
advantage even with the native Go cardless. Again, very competitive with that $5 cap on there on the low end.
So that's yeah, that's interesting. They
That's
keep
interesting.
they keep
Think about that one
I'm
for a
gonna keep
minute.
my mouth shut there. All right. I'm gonna keep my opinion shut to myself on
Yeah.
that.
Well,
But
and I think
yeah.
that just kind of speaks to, you know, of course, any business, there are going to be price increases. Cost of doing business is going up. And, Zero's not immune to that. But I think from what we've seen, whenever they've done it, it's been reasonable compared to what we see in the marketplace.
Yeah,
And
I have to admit that it's been fairly reasonable. And then you look at what others are doing, like you said, and it's like, wow. It's like, yeah, Zero is, they are accounting partner friendly, and they want to stay that way. And they priced it as such so that we can package it with what we're doing and make it very economical for us to use their product, whether it is on an efficiency side or the cost side. So I think it's win-win for the accounting profession across the board.
oh yeah, and I think that's over time one of the biggest gripes I hear from customers who are in other accounting software is every time there is a price increase or a change, it's like they just complain. Why am I still using this software? When are they
Mm-hmm.
going to do it again? Things are not improving. They just want more money for nothing, essentially.
Very true.
So nice to have Zero as an option. Definitely throw it out there, and I think over time we're going to see more and more people say, "Okay, I'm done with this. I'm going to make the switch. I'm going to go give Zero a try."
So I think I'm going to pivot directions a little bit, if that's all right. I think that our audience would be curious to hear more about your thoughts on bank feeds and bank feed connections. We know this is a big topic, right? But they also have been making a lot of recent enhancements lately as well. The PDF conversion within the product, that was something that they released in HubDoc a little while ago, but now they're bringing it directly to Xero. The partnership with Flinks, I believe it is, brings
Mm-hmm.
more direct integrations to Xero as well. Have you noticed anything about the connections to bank feeds? And can you tell us a little bit more about your experience with it?
Yeah, that's an interesting thought because obviously in the early days, and for me that's only going back like 3 years, bank feeds were very much a problem, and sometimes I was tied to one particular bank because in Washington State there's one credit union that a lot of businesses tend to use, and that one was always a challenge with Zero. But over time, I really haven't had as many issues with the bank feed as they did in the beginning. Part of that might be the fact that I did a lot of research on this, and I would always let customers know, if they're choosing account software, the bank is going to be a big determining factor. If they have a bank that is known not to work with Xero, then I might suggest they go with something else. Um, but obviously, any of the big banks, they have those direct connections, and those are fabulous. And I was actually really surprised when they made that announcement about the PDF statement upload. I didn't know how much I would actually use that because we're always connecting up the bank feeds or downloading, the CSV or the QBO file to upload into Xero. But just recently, I've started doing a couple of smaller cleanup jobs. And it worked out really nice because now we can just get the statements from the client and not have to worry about setting up the bank connection or granting us access to their bank account, which would be more of a long-term thing if they were going to be like a monthly client. But, I have one client we just started with, and we're just helping them get set up in Xero January 1st to current, and then they kind of want to handle things by themselves. So the fact that we can use these statements and just upload them to create the bank feed has been a really nice change.
Yeah, it's been
That's
a
a
great addition. Sorry.
Yeah, and that's a really great scenario that you pointed out too, right? Because most of the time with ongoing clients, you're going to have a connected bank feed, so there may be less use for the PDF conversion. But if you have one-time client, they're not going to send you both PDFs and also CSV files. That's like too much to ask of a client, right? And so being able to convert those PDFs directly in Xero, that's awesome. And so this particular feature, Xero claims that it's only good for supported banks, and they have a list of supported banks. But you've actually tried this with a bank that was not listed on their supported list. How did that work for you?
Yeah, it's interesting because they give you a lot of warnings there. But if you just push through the warnings, it'll go through. And so far, we're having good success with them. No major, issues, which I'm just blown away. I mean, they must have tested this, data extraction and OCR technology they're using, and really done a good job in perfecting it because we really haven't had too many issues. Now, it's still early, so we'll see if anything crops up. But I will say, talking about bake feeds, that one particular client that we're doing that cleanup job, we're doing the statements. Surprisingly, this is the first one in a long time we've not been able to find a bank feed for that bank. So I think it's a really small local bank. So either they're going to be downloading those transactions or they may just choose to upload those statements. So that could be a game-changing feature until they decide to either switch banks, which I'm always encouraging clients to switch banks because they really don't know some of the challenges we face with these banks.
Well,
There's the bank feed connection, but even just as accountants, some of these bank logins don't even provide us the information we need, which is just crazy in this day and age of technology.
well, one thing to be thinking about with the smaller banks, the new partnership with Flex gives Xero the ability to connect through the banking platforms that a lot of the smaller banks are using. So they might pop up in there at some point. So if they are still there and they haven't switched, that might be something. Just keep an eye on every couple months. Just pop in there and see if that feed's available, because they might surprise you at some point. They're popping in more and more of those smaller banks now every day.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. It reminds me too. I've made good use of Xero support sometimes with these bank feeds and just bringing things to their attention. And so they oftentimes will go back and forth and try to see what they can do to get them working or see if they need to go on a list of banks to be supported.
I think your point about convincing clients to move to banks that help you as the accountant do your job better deserves its own podcast or webinar or whatever you call it, because that's a common theme that I hear all the time from accounting firms. Like, how do you get your client to switch, especially when they've been making with them, they've had a long-term relationship with them, and they get great terms. How do you get them to switch?
Yeah, that is the big challenge. I'm still figuring this out. For me, with a lot of construction clients, it's they still do a lot of paper checks, and so that's one of the biggest challenges because, and I don't know why banks haven't figured this out, but a lot of them are taking these checks via like an ATM or the mobile deposit, taking a picture of it, but we have no information about this check anywhere, no check image. And so that's critical for us because if we're seeing deposits come in, we need to match them to, you know, customer invoices. How do we do so when we just see a number and a date? Doesn't make any sense.
Very true.
Well, welcome to the US.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so we talked a lot about some of the. Sorry, Jay, did you have something that you wanted
I was just
to?
going to say, I think Relay actually does pick those details up. I think they pull check details through, don't they?
Oh, Relay's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And most banks, especially your bigger banks, they provide those check images
Mm-hmm.
in the online banking. All right. So
Right.
you go to Chase, you can click and see that deposit and the check image. Easy peasy. But, there's just a few, especially some of these smaller banks and credit unions. They have the image, they just don't provide it.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, one thing I'd love to see Xero do, I've seen this done in other accounting software, is for those banks that support those check images, if we could bring those into the bank feed of Xero, that would be phenomenal. I've seen that with some other banks and accounting software, but still, it's very rare. So it's not widespread yet, but I think that would be a nice feature to have.
It would be if you could do that. And I know in the past, like HubDoc used to do that, and it was using a screen scraping technology to do that, which is now frowned upon. And when you're using the direct APIs, it makes it much more difficult. But at least push through a link that you can actually. I mean, there are ways of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it should expose it in the API and make it available would be really awesome. And you are right; it would help us tremendously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't see paper checks going away anytime soon. Especially with construction, the fees are quite high. When you're talking about tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And very not typical that you're going to take an ACH transaction for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the challenge there, though, is that Xero's tried, right, through HubDoc with screen scraping to do that at scale. But, when something changes on the banking side, it breaks that connection on the Xero side. And to have, I'm not super, super technical, but it's not about, I think, building and opening an API on the Xero side. And Jamie, you might be able to speak to this, but it's more on the banking side, right? How can we connect into their API, into their data, and pull that in? And especially when we have thousands and thousands of banks in the US, that would be difficult to do, time consuming, and maybe expensive too. Maybe that's why you don't see many softwares who do it very well or at all.
Yeah.
Is that how you feel?
Yeah, I think like I said, it's not a very common thing, even with other accounting software. I think I've only seen it with one, maybe two banks that support it out of everything out there. But when you see it and it works, you're like, oh, this is cool. I wish I had this across more clients.
Well, one thing that I would recommend, are you planning on going to XeroCon this year?
I don't have plans this year. No.
Okay. Well, if you were, I would definitely stop by the Xero booth and put in that request, because that would be a great way to getting these features added, is to specifically ask for it and do it in person. Is a great way to do it, because you can not only put that request in, but you could also build relationships with other Xeros, kind of like Tam out there, and start building those relationships. And I gotta say, I was on Xero's XPack. I am now a Xero ambassador, and they care. They really want to know what we want, and when you can relay it to them and give them that information and get that to the product teams, it is invaluable.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, definitely need to hear it from us, and I'm sure, I'm sure they get a lot of feedback, and that's why
Yeah.
we're seeing some nice updates.
Yeah, and I think that they're actually paying attention to like their product community requests now, because when they're putting out these product updates, they're also noting that, hey, this feature was actually one of the highly rated features or most upvoted features from our community. So I think that's another great way to submit product feedback now as well, because it seems like they're actually paying attention to it.
Yeah, in fact, I need to go visit the website and submit some of these
Yeah, there
ideas.
you go. It's great to see those suggestions that you've put in come to the product. It really is. And it was a long-standing one that a thread that I started, and I was asking Craig Walker, one of the founders of Xero, like every time I saw him, where is it? Where is it? And he says it's coming by the end of the year. We got it at the end of 2 years later, but we got it. And they did a lot of work to get it in there, and I appreciated that.
What was that feature?
What was it? Auto charging credit cards, auto pay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can't believe they didn't have that.
Yeah. And, we were fully embedded into Ignition at that point, so it really didn't matter too much for me at that point, but my clients truly benefited from it. And so I still love the fact that it got done finally. But yeah, it took a while because of, structure and getting things done and, doing it, connecting with Stripe, and Stripe has their way of doing things. So, they had to get through all of that, but we got it, and it works really well.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, and I do like the fact that with the Stripe integration, you can do the reimbursement of the fee natively in Xero. That's something you don't really see in other software.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to do that some other manual way.
Yeah, that was a great addition to when they brought that out. And the only caveat I will say is make sure your state laws allow you to do that.
Yeah, I am running into some little nuances here and there. Uh, you know, in Washington State, because we have sales tax, we do have to be careful with some of those reimbursement fees and making sure that sometimes they're taxable and sometimes they're not taxable.
That's a great
And
point.
I don't know that it's they have a solution for that yet. So we'll have to submit that one as well.
Yeah, that's a
But
great
that
point.
doesn't usually affect too many people, at least on my end.
Awesome. So we're talking about Xero features. Are there any Xero features that you are currently seeking that you could put in that feature request right away for?
That's a good question. Probably not necessarily in Xero itself. Like I said, I think having more integrations, is key. It seems like you could. It's hard to be everything to everyone. I think Xero has done a nice job of just sticking with their core. And I think this even kind of played out with payroll. I think that was even before my time. But since I've been using it, they've never dabbled in payroll. and it works out much better just to go to another payroll provider and have it integrated into Xero. So, oftentimes, you start, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have this feature? Or wouldn't it be nice to have that feature? And, it might just be better to have third-party apps that do it and probably do it better, that flow and integrate into the accounting software.
Yeah,
I think would be great. And just, let Xero focus on the core stuff and just do the core stuff really, really well. Speaking of that, that does remind me, and I think we mentioned this before in our conversations, because Xero doesn't have journal entries to the bank feed, there are some nuances to how they handle certain incoming transactions. And oftentimes they'll, like for payroll, they'll use the bills. But when it comes to payroll, you usually have multiple transactions tied to that bill. I'd love to see it where it's more automated and it could pull in 2 matching transactions to a bill rather than having to manually split it and match it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that completely. And when you brought that up the first time, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember thinking that a few years ago.
Yeah. When you see how it works in other accounting software, I mean, of course, they use it differently because they're using journal entries, but it is a lot more seamless, that way when it links up. And I think Xero could do it very easily. I mean, seems like you got the right dates. The algorithm wouldn't be that complex. Add a couple of transactions together, match to the bill. Bada bing, you got it.
There you go, Xero. Are you watching this? We'll clip that out and send it over to him.
Yeah. So, yeah, that would be good. How about you? Any features you're looking for?
Me specifically, I am more interested in getting more time behind Xero Inventory Plus and working on that and putting in feature requests for that and getting that built out to how I'd like to see it. As far as the core product, I mean, I've been using it for so long. I'm just so used to using it and have my workarounds if I need it. But I mean, honestly, most of those workarounds I used to use are no longer necessary. I mean, it's gotten a much more mature product than back in the 2012, 2014 range when we started using it. But for me, it's and my clients are in the e-commerce space, so I am more driven by Xero Inventory Plus and the sales tax. So that's what I am looking forward to, and getting that fully enabled and in my tool belt.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
I have not ventured into e-commerce or inventory, so I don't have much to add to that. But I hear good things about Xero and e-commerce.
Yeah, it's a perfect fit, and for a lot of our clients, they're already using a third-party app, and for Xero to step in the middle of that space, it's going to be a money saver for the clients and a time saver for us. And I mean, literally, I connected. It was Tuesday. I connected a new Shopify store to I connected Xero Inventory Plus to a new Xero store, Xero company, and connected it to Shopify, and literally in 10 minutes was set up. I mean, it was ready to go, and it's that quick, and they did a great job on the onboarding on that to make it simple as possible. That's what we want. Make it as easy as possible, and get more clients on it. Get it built out. Get it better. So
nice. I like it.
For sure.
Oh, I assume your question was directed towards Jay, because I have not been a practicing accountant for probably over half a decade now. But I will have to say that the kinds of features that I'm excited about most aren't the fancy ones like the Copilot or the Jax or whatever it is. just focusing on the core product, making it easier to navigate, making it easier to find what you need to faster so that you can actually complete your work more quickly and more accurately is huge. Things like the PDF conversion, things like being able to search for transactions on the reconcile page or being able to see more transactions on an individual page. I remember having to click on the reconcile page, next page, next page, next page, next page to
Mhm.
find the transaction that I wanted. And it was so painful. But I mean, these small features I think, are great enhancements. And if they keep going in that direction, I think that they're going to do really well.
Yeah, you are spot on there. I mean, those enhancements to the reconciliation page are amazing.
Mhm. Yeah, and I was just thinking too, just in general, and obviously there's probably some limitations on this, but just making the software very snappy. That's one thing I'm noticing with other software is it just seems to get clunky and slow down. And it's just nice when you go into a piece of software and it just moves. You're not waiting for it to hang or to load. It's just pop, pop, pop. It's just a pleasure. You want to get in there and you want to use the software. And I think Xero's really good at, they've got that basic platform. It's simple, but continuing to refine that and just making it, really snappy would be nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
think
completely
saving.
get that.
Mhm.
It's all right, Tam.
No, I was just, yeah, shaving seconds off makes a huge difference over time, especially if you've got a lot of clients. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're doing good. I like it. Um, if they keep going at the same rate, it's going to be amazing to see um, what happens. We just need to bring more awareness out there. I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges. Having conversations with clients is, you ask them, what accounting software they want to use or what have they used. Zero is just not even on their radar. They don't know it even exists. So, you know, programs like this help bring awareness out there.
That is true, but I think we're going to start seeing the name more and more in real streams. Whether it's on TV and sports, on the radio, on Sirius, on Spotify. I think it's going to start popping up there more and more, and we're going to start seeing more name recognition of Xero. And I think, it's going to be a fun run the next couple of years.
Oh yeah, if they can get the name recognition out there, I don't think it's a hard sell. It's especially if you can get in front of a business owner before they make that decision. If you put the different software in front of them, they have a really good chance they're going to choose Zero every time. It's just that the other software keeps getting more and more because they have that name recognition and nobody knows. Hey, there's alternatives out there. What are those alternatives?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, talking to business owners all the time, the first thing they say when they have to set up their books is, "I need to set up a QuickBooks account." I'm like, "Oh, do you know about Zero?" Like, I've never heard of that thing before. What is that? Yeah. So I
Exactly.
think a brand recognition and name awareness is definitely something that they need to work on over the next few years. But sounds like, Jay, that's something that they're going to be investing in pretty shortly here.
Yeah, I would definitely expect to see that in the near future here, coming to a city near you.
Yeah.
Well, this has
Well,
been great, Taylor. I mean, this has been refreshing. I love hearing your perspective and yeah, and you asking us our thoughts on things. So it was awesome. You know, um, I can't wait to see where you go with this and to watch you grow. And yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Well, likewise, it's I love having these conversations, especially with people like you who have a vast more amount of experience with this. The space seems to be fairly new still, but have somebody who's seen it grow and progress and seen those changes happen, learn from your experience. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and this is fun. I mean, for me, I want to talk to the community and do this. I've been trying to do this for so long, and when she told me she was leaving the corporate world to go out on her own, I'm like, oh, this is the perfect opportunity, and I like, Tam, we need to do this, and so this is just exciting for me, and goes back to quite a few years now. When I met Tam, and working with her, and it's like, yeah, she's awesome, what an awesome person, so knowledgeable, and to be able to do this with her, I'm just thrilled.
And I think Tam's going to bring a lot to the plate for Xero. There's such a big gap, in training and education in Xero. You just go to YouTube, try to find something, and it's like there's a plethora of stuff for other accounting software. And then for Xero, there's just a small amount of stuff. And, there's a huge opportunity for training and education. I think people will just really love having that.
Yeah, I'm really excited just about the opportunities that we're faced with in the future here, and having these kind of conversations with such amazing folks who are just so integrated in the community. I think it just brings a level of richness, and to me personally, joy, because it's not fun to do things on just by yourself, right? It's you go farther and faster together, and so I really appreciate you both. Taylor, thank you so much for hopping on with us and sharing your perspectives on the software, both good and bad. And Jay, love you to death. I'm looking forward to doing more stuff with you.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Same time, same day, same channels.
That's right. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Taylor. And everybody out there, drop in some comments. We want to hear from you as well. And don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell to know when we will be live next. So thank you, everybody. We will catch you next time.